Well, yesterday I read a very strange petition by a group of women who claimed that they are Christians. And their petition was to ask for stopping the process of investigating allegations against the Chief Justice and her possible impeachment. Now, the basis of their petition was that the Chief Justice is a woman and a Christian, and therefore she should not be removed from office. And I was wondering, the name which came to my mind immediately was the name of Charlotte Osei. And I think it's important to remind the petitioners that Madame Charlotte Osei was not a priest of the Akunedi shrine. She too was a Christian. It's important also to remind them that she is a woman, and also that Loretta, the woman who was removed from shrine, was not a Buddhist. And beyond that, she was also a woman. I mean, what is this crass? Anyway, what is this? That she should not be removed because she's a woman and a Christian. Where is that coming from? What law says that when Christians infract, the law, they should be left free and so on? I mean, very strange. But you see, it did not end there. One of the persons that I grew up respecting a lot, Mr. Sami Okudzeto, one of the most distinguished lawyers of our time. And when I was growing up, she was the leader of the National Alliance of Liberals, which was in opposition to the Progress Party. And indeed, all of us came to respect him a lot because of his principled stand against the Buzia administration and so on. And yesterday, he made a statement which was most shocking. The statement he made was that having been suspended, there was no way the Chief Justice could come back to office. And I was wondering, which law says that? Which provision in the Constitution says that? Suspension is not the equivalent of dismissal. In fact, suspension means that if she is exonerated, she will come back to office. That's what suspension means. So I was just wondering how Mr. Sami Okudzeto, distinguished legal practitioner, one of the most senior lawyers in Ghana today, could come to such a conclusion. How did he come to this conclusion? Unbelievable. Now, there's something else that I want to emphasize, and it's simply this. This morning, all kinds of things are being published, and the claim is that they are the petitions on the basis of which the matter was referred to the Council of State. We cannot accept what we are saying in the papers as petitions. There's no way of verifying that, and we cannot accept them now as the petitions. They may well be, but there's no basis for accepting them as a petition as at now. That's an important part of the equation. And it's also to do with what is claimed to be the Chief Justice's response to the petition. I think they should be dismissed as they are. So, now, for those who are crying all over the place and so on, I want them to show me one law, one constitutional provision which has been breached by the president. One, just one. Clearly, they talk about this will be a bad precedent and so on and so on. How is it legal? What in the Constitution says that anything which has been done so far is unconstitutional. What in the laws of Ghana says that anything which has been done so far is illegal. So, until they are able to do that, I think it's important for them to keep quiet and stop the noise making. You see, the Chief Justice has not helped herself at all in this matter. One, by leaking some information, about this process, she has done herself some damage. The framers of the Constitution decided that all of this should be held in secret, in camera, and so on, in order to protect the image and reputation of the Chief Justice, especially when at the end of the process she's found innocent, so she can come back, sit on the bench, and continue to act as Chief Justice without reputational damage. And I think she should have respected this position. The moment she leaked aspects of the correspondent and so on, she opened the door. Because the petition against Charlotte Osei, as we sit here, nobody knows who the petitioners were. It was never disclosed. It was done in confidence. You understand? The processes were done in camera and so on. But this Chief Justice, because of her own conduct, opened the doorway, and now things are flying around and so on. And no matter what happens, even if she's found innocent in the process, she's likely to suffer some reputational damage. You understand? It may well be, as it is claimed, that this allegation, I'm not saying that the allegation is true, that she traveled with a daughter, she traveled with a husband, and some per diem was paid and so on, may well be that it fitted into her conditions of service. But you see, people are asking questions. People are saying, why should anybody working in Ghana under Ghanaian conditions and for the Ghanaian people be given a vacation abroad? I mean, why would you employ anybody, Chief Justice, President, whatever, Minister, and in their conditions of service, you say that they're entitled to vacation abroad. They can travel abroad to enjoy their holidays, especially at the expense of the taxpayer and so on. So, you see, this leakage is causing some damage. And I'm very uncomfortable about that. Because it is just possible that at the end of the day, she may be found innocent, and because she will be found innocent, she may have to return to her position. Yes. But all these things will be hanging on her neck and so on. So I'm worried about that. Now, the other thing I'm worried about is that, and there's no law which prescribes how people should select their lawyers when they have cases to answer. There's no law which prescribes that. And indeed, I think that all lawyers, if they are faithful to their calling, will do a good job regardless of their political coloring and so on. But then there's this thing called public perception. And public perception is not grounded in law. Public perception has to do with our inherent biases and so on. You understand? So if you have a situation where a Chief Justice is in this situation, and it does appear that her entire legal team is made up of persons from a particular party, that is damaging. In fact, that may tend to reinforce the public perception that there's a political case between the NDC and the NPP, and the aesthetics are not good. It doesn't help the sitting Chief Justice. And I think that she would have known much better. I was expecting her to have known much better. Now it gets worse when a whole political party jumps into the vanguard of a defense. You know, it's strange. Now, there's another aspect which for me is troubling. I've been talking about it, you know, it's exceedingly troubling. Some people have already started jumping the gun. And what are they doing? They're saying, oh, if this succeed, then maybe there'll be a petition against the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, and that will also succeed. Why not? Why not? If it is established that her conduct amounts to stated misbehavior, misconduct, and incompetence, and so on, and she goes away, she's removed through a constitutional process, what should stop the Council of State, the President, and relevant institutions from removing the Electoral Commission if she's also found to be incompetent and to have engaged in stated misbehavior? What should stop that? Kwame, what should stop that? My brother, what should stop that?
Well,
why should we even think of that?
That's my question. What should we think of that?
If the chairperson of the Electoral Commission or any member of the Electoral Commission has behaved in such a manner as to qualify for impeachment, so be it. If the president has behaved in any manner to qualify for impeachment, so be it. So it doesn't matter the number of people who will be affected. There are so many people who can be impeached, you know, on the basis of stated misconduct. Yeah. None of them should become insulated from the process simply because the Chief Justice has fallen. So that argument doesn't make any sense at all. And I think we should drop it. So far, it seems to me that the president has carried out his constitutional duty. What he has done is an injunction by the Constitution and the laws of Ghana. Indeed, if the president did not act in the manner in which he has acted, we ought to take him on for dereliction of duty. You understand? So the president is only doing what we elected him to do. Look, I am opposed to the death sentence. Because, for example, we know that many people were on death row and eventually, some people were actually executed and eventually we found them innocent. So once you execute people, you cannot bring them back to life. And that is why we ought to be very, very cautious about carrying out the death sentence and so on. But you see, one of the duties of a president is to sign warrants for killing people. In Ghana, you cannot have a president who is squeamish, who doesn't want to kill. Because one of his duties is that when the state decides that somebody must be killed, he has to approve it. So everybody you elect as a president must have the instinct, the knack to kill. It's his duty. You understand? It's a very unpleasant duty. But if you want to be president of Ghana, you should be somebody who can take a pen and sign for somebody to be killed, to be shot, to be hanged, and so on. It's not a very pleasant duty, is it? So presidents have duties imposed on them which are not which are not pretty, which are not elevating, and so on. But they have to act as presidents. And that is the position in which President John Dramani Mahama finds himself. It is possible that President John Dramani Mahama really admires this Chief Justice. It is possible.
It is possible, yes.
It is possible that John Dramani Mahama, in his quiet, sober moments and so on, thinks that this is a very beautiful, honest, hard-working woman. Yeah. But the Constitution says that he must act in this way. Yeah. He cannot refuse to act in this way. The Constitution insists that he must report these matters to the Council of State. And then when the Council of State establishes a prima facie case, he has to set up a 5-member committee to go into the matter. When the 5-member committee decides, oh my goodness, that the Chief Justice fell foul of the law, that she was engaged in misconduct and she was incompetent, President Muhammad has no choice but to sack her. This is the Constitution. This is the duties we elected him to perform. And I think he should be allowed to perform his duties. Finish.